Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. The apocryphal books awaken great curiosity and fascination, especially among those unaware of their existence. The Book of Giants, like the Book of Enoch and other ancient writings, is an example that attracts a lot of attention. But who exactly was the author of the Book of Giants, and what is this text all about? In this video, I will explore the history of this ancient manuscript, which dates back to the time of Christ and even earlier periods. So, don't forget to leave your like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on more content like this. The mystery of the Book of Giants. The Book of Giants is an apocryphal work that expands on the accounts found in the Book of Genesis of the Hebrew and Aramaic Bible, much like the Book of Enoch. Similar to the latter, the Book of Giants seeks to provide an explanation for the unchecked growth of evil on earth before the flood. The work also addresses the divine justification for the sending of the Great Flood, showing that God's action was more than justified given the prevalent corruption and violence of the time. It is estimated that the composition of this text occurred around the 3rd century BCE. The text is an antediluvian or pre-flood narrative, recounting events before the biblical flood. The tradition of the Book of Giants was widely preserved in Manichaean literature and is primarily known through texts found in Turfan in the Central Asia region. Despite this, the oldest roots of this work can be traced back to Aramaic manuscripts found among the famous Dead Sea Scrolls, indicating that its early influence was already present in Jewish communities before it became part of the Manichaean legacy. The text not only expands on the details of the antediluvian period, but also offers new perspectives on human and celestial behavior at the time, reinforcing the complexity of the universe depicted in apocryphal and biblical traditions. References to the existence of giants can be found in various biblical passages and ancient texts. A significant example is in Genesis 6:1-4, where the Nephilim are mentioned as the descendants of a union between the sons of God and the daughters of men. Furthermore, other apocryphal texts and ancient writings reinforce this narrative, such as the books of Enoch, Jubilees, the apocryphal Genesis, and the 2nd and 3rd Baruch, as well as the Damascus document. There are also scattered mentions throughout the Pentateuch and in historical books such as Judges, Joshua, and Samuel. The Book of Giants presents a detailed narrative about the origin, history, and fate of these antediluvian giants, as well as their parents, the so-called Watchers. These beings, also referred to as the sons of God, rebelled against divine plans, becoming fallen angels when they crossed the boundaries set by creation. They descended to earth and, in an act of transgression, united with the daughters of men, engaging in lust and generating corrupted descendants. The giants known as Nephilim, Gibborim, or Rephaim were hybrids distinguished by their strength and size. These mixed races directly challenged divine authority, fighting against God and his righteous followers. However, their corruption and wickedness contributed to the moral decay of the pre-flood world, which led to the progressive diminishing of the righteous and culminated in the sending of the Great Flood as divine judgment. This narrative, widely explored in the Book of Giants and other related texts, reflects the ongoing struggle between good and evil, highlighting the resistance of the faithful in a world dominated by corruption and chaos. In the Manichaean fragments, these evil beings are generally referred to as demons, although the terms used to designate the Watchers and their descendants often blur in different translations. Collectively, these rebellious races are known as fallen angels, both in apocryphal sources and in some biblical narratives that allude to them. As for the origins of the Book of Giants, it is known that it was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of the greatest archaeological treasures of the 20th century. However, the tradition that sustains the text is even older, being known before the second half of the last century. For a long time, the book was associated with the Middle Iran, with some scholars believing it was originally written in Eastern Aramaic. This composition is thought to have circulated among the Manichaeans, being attributed to Mani, 216 to 274 AD, the founder of Manichaeism. Mani was a Parthian citizen from southern Mesopotamia and seems to have been influenced by the thought of Elkezai, a Jewish Christian prophet and visionary who lived in the early 2nd century. The Book of Giants, in its Manichaean version, was probably written in Pahlavi, a script derived from Middle Persian, and was part of the rich syncretic and cosmological tradition characteristic of Manichaeism. This trajectory highlights the cultural and religious relevance of the text, which underwent various adaptations and influences over the centuries, preserving fragments of Jewish, Christian, and Iranian traditions. Some scholars, based on evidence related to geographic distribution and ritual practices, have suggested similarities between the Elsisates and the ancient Jewish sect of the Essenes, which flourished during the Second Temple period. This connection reflects possible shared or parallel influences between both religious traditions. During the 20th century, several discoveries provided new perspectives on the literary evidence associated with the Book of Giants. In 1943, researcher W.B. Henning published Manichaean fragments of this work, found in Turfan, in the western region of China, now the Xinjiang province. These discoveries confirmed historical references to the circulation and use of the Book of Giants among the Manichaeans, solidifying its relevance in the Manichaean tradition. Later, in 1971, an important discovery was made by scholar Joseph T. Millick, who identified several additional fragments of Enochian texts in Aramaic among the famous Dead Sea Scrolls. These fragments showed a remarkable resemblance to the Manichaean edition of the Book of Giants attributed to Mani. Based on this, Millick concluded that the Book of Giants was likely a key part of the first Book of Enoch, reinforcing the hypothesis that it constituted a direct extension of the original Enochian tradition. These discoveries not only expanded the understanding of the spread and influence of the Book of Giants, but also highlighted its significant role as a link between the apocryphal Jewish traditions and Manichaean cosmology. The Aramaic fragments found among the Dead Sea Scrolls representing an Enochian tradition were probably introduced to Mani during his time with the Elsisates. These sources seem to have served as the primary basis for the composition of Mani's Book of Giants, where the legend of the Watchers and the Giants became one of the fundamental pillars of his theological speculations. For many scholars, the fragments found in Qumran confirm that the Book of Giants was originally an independent work, created during the Second Temple period. Among the discoveries made at the site, 10 manuscripts of the Book of Giants were identified, as catalogued by Lauren Stuckenbrook. These manuscripts are known by the designations 1Q23, 1Q24, 2Q26, 4Q203, 4Q530, 4Q531, 4Q532, 4Q556, 4Q206, and 6Q8, and were found in various numbered caves, 1, 2, 4, and 6, at Qumran. These discoveries not only demonstrated the existence of an older tradition of the Book of Giants, but also allowed it to be classified as part of a third group of Enochian works. Until then, the work had only been known through Manichaean sources. However, the fragments found at Qumran proved that the text has much older origins, dating to a period before its incorporation into the Manichaean corpus. This evidence has consolidated the importance of the Book of Giants in the study of literary and theological traditions during the Second Temple period, reinforcing its role as a bridge between Jewish apocryphal narratives and Manichaeism. The origin of the language of the Book of Giants has been the subject of considerable debate. Traditionally, it was believed that the text had a Semitic origin. The discovery of fragments at Qumran strengthened this hypothesis, leading scholars such as C.P. van Andel and Rudolf Otto to suggest that, while the known Aramaic compositions are the oldest preserved, they likely derive from even older Hebrew texts. This theory is supported by the statement of R.H. Charles, translator and editor of the Book of Enoch, in 1906. Charles suggested that the Book of Enoch was built upon the ruins of a Noah saga that would even precede the narrative found in Genesis. The Genesis text, in turn, makes only enigmatic and succinct references to Noah and the events related to the Watchers and the Giants. This line of thought points to the possibility that the accounts of Enoch and the Book of Giants are echoes of an older tradition, deeply rooted in the mythology and cultural history of the ancient Near East. Linguistic analysis and comparison between the texts suggest that these works may have played an important role in the formation of subsequent biblical and apocryphal narratives. Milik himself offered his own hypothesis that Enoch's creation story and account of God's law naturally predate the Sinai Mosaic accounts in Genesis. He saw Genesis 6:1-4, a long and puzzling passage for biblical scholars, as a quotation from what he believed to have been ultimately Enoch's earlier source. Recent research, such as that conducted by Klaus Bayer, suggests that the Book of Giants, parts of which were found in Hebrew in the Qumran manuscripts, was originally composed in Hebrew in the 3rd century BCE. However, the presence of the names of the giants Gilgamesh and Hobabish in the text points to a Babylonian influence. Despite this Babylonian origin is contested by Martinez, who argues against such an interpretation based on linguistic and cultural elements. This debate about the origins and influences of the Book of Giants not only enriches biblical studies, but also highlights the complexity of the oral and written traditions that shaped ancient texts. It underscores the interaction between different cultures and the transmission of ideas over time. The historian Flavius Josephus also referenced the Enochian line of thought, which addresses the involvement of fallen angels with human women and the emergence of supernatural beings. In his work Antiquities of the Jews, Josephus asserts that what the Greeks and Romans called giants, titans, demigods, or gods were in fact the sons of God, Bene Ha-Elohim in Hebrew, whom he identifies as fallen angels seeking worship by passing themselves off as gods. This view is also reflected in the writings of the Apostle Paul. When addressing idolatry, Paul explains that worshipping idols is akin to worshipping demons. These demons, according to this perspective, would be the fallen angels themselves. Interestingly, the demonic hierarchy described by Paul, principalities, powers, and spiritual hosts of wickedness, parallels the hierarchy presented in the Book of Enoch, which mentions the spirits of the giants and classes of fallen angels, each with specific functions within this structure. The Book of Giants, a work associated with the texts found at Qumran, explores these ideas in greater depth, offering a fascinating view of the interaction between fallen angels and humanity, as well as the consequences of this contact. Now we want to know your opinion. What do you think about the Book of Giants and its connections to biblical and historical traditions? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for following along. May God bless you, and we'll see you soon.